Well, look who we have here, everybody. The voice and casting directors of Baldur's Gate 3, Beth Park, Josh Weeden. Guys, it's a pleasure to have you on. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having us. We've enjoyed all your other interviews with the rest of this merry band. So, yeah, lovely to have the opportunity to speak to you.
Thanks, Dan.
You guys have a pretty cool setup there. Where are we for anyone that might not know?
We are in sunny South London in Pitstop's in-house facilities, which are a mixture of voice, motion capture, HMC recordings, a head-mounted camera, and we kind of meld them all together.
So behind us is the dungeon, aka Mocap volume, where we recorded a lot of our actors for Baldur's Gate 3. So they were like in there on the other side of the glass, hands on the window, like, let us out. And we were like, no, staying until the game's finished.
We would periodically throw in hobnobs and just hope for the best.
Yeah, and then, we would sit here and chat to them, have the script up on those screens there. Yeah.
And they were all just a pain to work with, weren't they?
Oh, no. Honestly, it's a well-known comment that we had one of the most delightful casts known to man. I think we ended up with about 280 acts.
Should have looked that up, but yeah, definitely
around
over 250.
Yeah, right, over 250. Below 300, over 250, but just delightful people. Everyone really enthusiastic, happy to be here and loving their work, which is not rare, but it's nice, you know?
How does that compare to other games you guys have worked on? 250 in the cast, that's not a typical thing, is it?
That is large, but not insanely large. The way that, when it comes to recording dialogue for game, especially, it's imagine the way I try to describe this to people. Imagine you're watching the film Gladiator, but you can talk to every single person in the around in the stadium. That's why casts are so large, because in order to actually populate a world, it's not like a film with every single extra has lines.
I think one of the differences is that with a lot of games that we work on, they come to us like almost one of the last jobs is coming to us. Whereas with Baldur's Gate 3, it was growing as we were recording it. So like it grew up to a point with early access, and then it just kept growing. So when we first started, we didn't know where it was going to end or how many people were going to be in it, or even like the details of some of the major storylines. We were like learning over the years that we made it. So that's like a major difference with others, which was actually good in some ways, because you'd be partway through the story and something would be revealed to the player or to the characters, which is a kind of like, holy shit moment. And for us in the studio and for the actors, it'd be like, oh my God. You know, obviously no spoilers, I'm not going to say any of them. But it did actually, you know, a performance is good when the chemicals in the room are changing, like the chemicals in the actor are changing the moment. So if there's like something real going on, I mean, part of that work's done for you. So that was actually a great thing sometimes.
Do you guys want to go through how it all started for you in terms of, I guess, this game and this role, and maybe a bit of your background for people that might not know?
I originally started working with Larian on Divinity Original Sin 1, which was my first sort of proper game, where I was brought in as an audio engineer, and then later as the production went on and they got near the final death throes, as voice director. Off the back of that, a couple of years later, we did Divinity Original Sin 2, where I was lead voice director and audio engineer at the time, and that went through for about a year. And then the Christmas after that wrapped was when I was chatting to one of their writers, because we spent an awful lot of time talking, and they mentioned, by the way, the next thing is Baldur's Gate 3, which was now, for me, 5-6 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. It's been a little minute.
He's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. I've lived with nothing but fantasy worlds for the last decade. It's okay. But yeah, off the back of that, then we had to go into working out like technology and how we were going to make this all happen and pipelines. But then, yeah, pretty much the better part of 5 years of production on top of that.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, just to clarify, although we look like family, we are not related. This job, because I'm his sister or his cousin, we just
we tried nepotism and that didn't work out with my siblings. So.
But yeah, I interviewed to direct on the game like summer 2019, early summer 2019, and then started directing, in midsummer 2019.
Is this your first? Is this your first game, Beth?
Well, at the time it was
yes,
in 2019. I mean, we work on projects, lots of projects overlapping. So now by this point, many years later, I have done quite a lot of games. But at the time it was. So there was a lot of stuff that I was figuring out at the beginning. And, I'd be like months into it and I'd be like, oh, so they're just like running around as they're saying this, like things like that. And I'll be like, okay. Obviously, 4 years down the line, I'm an old hat at that kind of thing, and it seems really obvious to me. So when I bring new directors on, I have to remember, all those little details.
So do you guys want to run down what a day to day is for you guys, for the audience? Because you're also casting as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll do my day.
You do your day.
Okay, so we arrive in the studio in the morning, and so let's say we're in mid-production for Baldur's Gate 3, and so the actor will arrive, and I will have like half an hour whilst the actor gets markered up, suited up, microphone on their head, to obviously the day before or previously I'll have had a look at their script, but that will be my opportunity to quickly revise, quickly make sure all the questions that I had been answered, pull up audio from last time they were in, if it's not like a lead character, maybe it's like an NPC we did 2 years ago and they've written a pickup line. And we'll shoot with the actor. Maybe it will be like the longest session we'll do be like a 4-hour shoot. Or it could just be like a 1 hour if it's just a few pickups. And that will be like a team with one of us, or I mean, this probably is a good point to say, like, we are not the only directors on the game. Like, there
was an army.
We certainly should not be getting the entire credit for this. We have a wonderful team. So, director and a movement director and a mocap engineer and an audio engineer, all working together with the actor locked in there. And then let's say in the afternoon doing a bit of casting, so pulling up, like, I mean, at one point the list of characters that we needed to cast was just frightening, really frightening. But the writers were very good at, like, even if it was just like and I think it comes across when you play the game, even if it was just like a 1 or 2 line character, they give you a really interesting bio, like give you like biography of the character, something to chew on, which would just be like, that actor will be perfect for this because they're really good at playing, a tortured victim, or, they're really good at playing posh, silly characters, whatever. So even if it was a small character, you'd have something to hook onto. And so at that point, I would be like, okay, say it's only a 2-line character. Who have we got coming in the next few weeks that could pick up that 2-line character? Because I'm not going to just get someone in just to do 2 lines, because logistically it doesn't make sense. So there's this whole other very, very boring side of it, which is just like the logistics of who is coming in, who can do this well, who fits all the casting, like the things that needs to be fitted. So that was tough.
From my side, normally start on the training, as it were. I've got like this lovely window in the morning of an hour's commute where I can liaise with our internal pre-production team and Larian's production team, and questions that come in and things from directors or like writers or edit or some other thing, whilst also doing session prep. Then I can come in, do a session for like, say, 1, 2, 4 hours, as it were, squeeze in some other bits in the middle of comms, as it were. And it got to the point when it came to casting where I'd only chuck my oar in when it came to the bigger ones, as it were. So lovely the fact that we brought Beth on to actually. There's like different types of role. There's the ones which are like either like global roles, people like companions who will come in and then be a massive part of the story, or like not NPCs but situational roles. Yeah. Someone you meet in one area. And that kind of thing. So it meant that I could focus more on the global ones, which was an awful lot of back and forth with Larian as well. Like we'd find tapes or do in-person castings together and try and really find the best person to really encapsulate those roles, send them back, get notes from Larian, back and forth, and those kind of things. But working as a team was quite delightful on that kind of aspect. But then, 6 to 7 hours of sessions a day.
Yeah, and also trying to kind of like, spin so many plates, because obviously we were talking to Larian, talking to the writers, and then also, like I mentioned, we have this fleet of directors. So they, we are their first port of call if there's any question in session, like, what is this story? Or should this character have an accent? Or, any little question like that. So you're trying to direct, you're trying to field questions, like, on the side. You're trying to cast. It was a bit mental.
Enough to be getting on with,
Yeah.
I think, is the safe way.
So for people that don't know, so Larian hire Pitstop to basically do everything cinematic. How would you describe the relationship?
They've got a fantastic cinematics department. What we do is provide voice and motion capture recordings.
So we give them the tools in which their cinematics department can then create a world based on an awful lot of people in black lycra dancing around in an empty room. So we do that bit. We do the dancing around in the empty room, but then focus on characterization and performance and interpretation. And then from that, they can then use that to create the world that everyone seems to be enjoying and experiencing.
So who's your communication point at Larian for you guys? Who are you talking to? Are you talking to them on a daily basis, or?
There's a lot of people. I mean, because there's so many different, there's your writers, but then within the writers, there's a different writer for each origin character, or, maybe one writer will have tackled one area. Like, for example, the circus was done by Rachel Quirk. So if I knew, like, okay, it's a circus question, that's going to Rachel. Or if it's an origin, if it's a Shadowheart question, that's going to John. Or movement questions. There's a lot.
So we'd obviously talk to the writers in terms of like scripting, but then there's also the motion capture team in terms of how they need specifics on like either specific movements or set locations or props, and that's a whole other branch to talk to. But then we also need to talk to the cinematics department to see how it works in their grand scheme of things. We jump around most of the company. The animation department is a whole other thing which we talk to when it comes to like battle poses and things like that.
Well, are you guys actors yourselves? Because, as you said, I feel like directors, some of the best directors are sort of have that great rapport with the actors and sort of know, how to balance.
Yeah.
You yes, me no.
Yeah, so I was an actor for like 10 years, and yes, that's like a major tool that I have, essentially, because I can see someone on the other side of the glass, like knees knocking, if it's their first day, maybe it's their first game, and I'm not there to kind of like be their mum. I'm there to basically direct them, obviously, but so if you have someone who's like, it's okay, so this is where we are, let me like switch your imagination on, so you're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking about what your character's trying to do to somebody else, as opposed to, oh my god, my voice sounds bad, or I can't, this isn't sounding how it sounded in my head in my bedroom. So yes, I mean, every actor's different. They need something else, but that's I think is probably my main skill, is just kind of identifying like, oh, I can see what you're doing to yourself right now. Let's distract you, or let's kind of give you some context to get your imagination fired up, or something like that. And ultimately, like, in my head, I'm always saying, this is how I would say it. So how can we get that person to say it how I would say it? If, like, so they'll obviously offer something, and I will just be like, okay, either yes, that's brilliant, or like, let's tweak it, let's inspire you in one way or another, or, well, how can I get it to how I would say it if it's just way off? And then that's a case of, well, one of many tools that you can use to try and get it.
It depends on how the actor works. I mean, someone really appreciates like very, very technical notes, especially it depends on their background. Yes. So if you say, pause here, hit that word there, give us a downwards inflection, that will get the shape of the line that it needs to be. But then some people react way better with like working with eye lines. Can you look down here at the toes and then only make your eye contact on this point? And those kind of shifts will change how a delivery is made, or even like very location based. So you emit a fiery volcano. The sound of being outside in the wind, there is a distinct vocal projection which people do, which we don't really know why, but it sounds like this, and it's those kind of things. If you can give those working with how the actor best responds, you kind of need to twig that for the first time with the actor in the first 10 minutes just to see what they need to get what you need out of it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. But you're working with so many actors over so many years, guys, and everyone has a different approach. So do you just stick to your guns, or do you have to sort of mold yourself for the actor?
I prefer to be a chameleon. I will change how I approach things depending on what they need. Because at the end of the day, their performance is the important bit. The best way I've found is to make them the most comfortable that they can be. So I will change how I talk to them, different notes I give. But I try to keep the attitude in the studio really relaxed. You make jokes. You allow time for fuckery between lines, like 10 minutes of arsing around. If that relaxes the actor comfortably, and then they can just carry on with the day, especially in a 4-hour session, you need space to allow playtime.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. You can tell, like, when you're watching a performance or hearing a performance, you can tell the difference between if the actors... I mean, it sounds so lame, but having fun. Like, for example, Neil, who plays Astarion, like, he was having the time of his life in there.
I can tell.
And you can hear it. And then if you have an actor who's new, who's just tense, that's like a huge part of our job, is to essentially just be like, okay, it's okay. It's all right. What we're going to do is this. Is this how it's going to be? And ultimately, it's not all about like, let me go in and give you a shoulder rub, but it's about it is about relaxation, because you know what it's like when you're nervous. Like your whole body just seizes up. And I mean, that's kind of the opposite of where you want to be if you're going to be giving a great performance.
And the worst thing as well is that they are, by the time they've reached us, they're here for a reason. We've gone through their reels, we've gone through their casting. We want them to be here, and it's getting them in that headspace of, you're here for a reason.
Yeah.
You can do this. We believe in you. Let us help you do that. And so sometimes it's just climbing people down from their anxieties. But then some people just hit the ground running. So, yeah.
Yeah, the casting's like half the work, isn't it? Exactly. Finding the right people for the right roles. Yeah.
Oh, it's easy. Like, it's so easy if you have the right actor in the right role. It's just fun. It's just so much fun. You know, all you have to do is just, you know, paint your little word picture. Oh, you're here, you're in a tavern. You know, give them something to think about, and just set them off.
It's when you can really do that sort of bouncing back and forth as well. So you've found someone who you know is excellent for the role, and you come in with your little word speech, as it were, get them set off, and then they say something, you go, oh, but hang on, because of that, now maybe we could actually add this into it instead, and then twist it that way and add this another layer, and then they bounce off you, and then you get this wonderful partnership, and then someone from technical is there going, can we just press record now, please? We haven't actually started yet. And then, okay, back to line one, I guess.
Yeah.
So how do you guys go with the more emotional scenes? How do you approach those any differently, or are they just another scene?
I tend not to. I think if you kind of put like a microscope on it and you're like, right, this is a scene where you're about to have a breakdown, then the actor's like, okay, I'm about to have a breakdown. Like when I was at drama school, we had this kind of theory of like inside out and outside in. So either you can feel something on the inside and it will resonate and show on the outside. But also, it's not invalid to demonstrate something on the outside, and that will trigger something on the inside, if that's making sense. So, like, maybe the character is, like, having a breakdown, but the actor's feeling nothing, and they start to panic. I don't find that worrying at all, because they can literally just do ham acting, terrible acting, and act, oh, my character's having a breakdown, and I'm just going to make my voice crack and make it sound like I'm having a breakdown, and then, like, suddenly, actually, something is in the, you know, recesses of their brain is actually triggered, and it can actually connect to something real, even if it comes from kind of just overacting, demonstrating on the outside. And then, like, maybe that take will be a bit hammy, but then we'll do another one, and they're in the right place. So just like, leave them to it.
So you sometimes get them on the second or third, yeah.
Well, when we were doing lots of Sam stuff, Karlach stuff, that sort of just scheduling ended up that it was an awful lot of night sessions. And some of her more emotional bits, of which there are in the game, which I won't go into too much detail, I always said, oh, we'll just do a rehearsal. This is what we're talking about. This is some of the speeches that you have to do. And so we'll do a rehearsal, but we record everything. Once the actor's in the right place, then I tend to go very quiet.
Just
really
allow that.
Okay, let's just go for another one. And these are my notes. Let's just pick it up from here, because I don't want to interrupt them. They've reached the point where they need to be emotionally to be able to perform the scene, and then me going, "That's great. Can we go for another?" It might break that moment, and therefore, thus ruining what could be a really wonderful thing. And therefore, just taking a step back, allowing them the space they need to be able to perform. And God, with some of Sam's stuff, I think at one point everyone in the studio was in tears. Which
Wow.
is like, that's great, Sam. Let's just go for one more. But we'll pick up from here. You said that word incredible. Yeah.
I think that is one of the skills you learn when you've been directing is like at the first, you kind of like, you just want to stomp all over it and you just be like, make your mark and be like, well, I want this. And, to really kind of have your presence felt. But at a certain point, you have to just kind of be like, actually, they've got this. Like, I can tweak and guide, and then I'm just going to, I don't need to stomp all over this. That's not going to make it better. All it's going to do is serve my ego.
Sessions are about the actor.
Yeah.
And the performance.
And the story.
So if an actor is struggling, how do you approach that? Do you just take a breather?
Yeah, sometimes. Once you've done like 5 takes, 7 takes, 15 takes of a line and it's not working, I like to put a mark, move on, find something else. And then you can always come back to it later, especially if normally you have those kind of stumbles very, very early on, whilst everyone's still finding their feet, finding a role. But it's fine. You just go back to it after 3 hours of doing the same thing. And then you go, cool, I just have another run at that whilst we're here. Generally, actors feel more comfortable because they've got a better sense of who they're pretending to be at that moment. And then suddenly you can knock it out in 2 takes perfectly.
Yeah, like they were just thinking too hard. We were all thinking too hard and trying too hard and over-censoring everything. But if you just stop questioning it and just go with it, it's usually better. Sometimes I'll do like, say you have an actor in who's picking up a bunch of NPCs and, it's their first game or whatever and they're struggling and you think, I'll start with an easy one. I'll start with just human guard. And they're really kind of wooden. I kind of found that sometimes it's better to start with a crazy one to get the shell. So I'd be like, okay, you're a ghoul in a sewer who loves to eat sewer mulch. And they just like, okay, go for it. And they get really gross. And then they've humiliated themselves to a point of no return. So playing a human guard, I mean, it's so easy. So
they know what the top end of bonkers is, and then you can work backwards from there. That's fine.
Yeah.
This is the best casting of goblins in history of video games. I'll tell you what. So good.
Happy that makes me.
The Goblin Camp was initially, that was an intense period because we had to not only establish what goblins sounded like in this world, but there were also just so many and just such a small area. It's a really distinct vocal tone. And so finding the right people who could actually have the right level of aggressive without becoming comedic was hard. But once we found it, it was a lovely groove. I think one of my favourite ones was Penelope Rawlins. We got in to play a couple goblins, and she normally does like kids TV and animation. She's done loads of games, but this was I think the first time I made her. She said I made her terrifying.
Wow.
I feel so powerful because usually she plays like these lovely, light-hearted, springy characters, and then we had her like sharpening a spear and like spitting venom and that kind of like ire to her, and that was great fun because I knew she could do it. She had the vocal range for it. It's just getting her into that place to get that cruelty to come out. So glad that worked out.
Well, not just the goblins. I think you guys, this is one of the greatest casting I've ever seen. I mean, just everyone nails it. I don't know how you guys did it. I'm in awe.
We're just so good at our job.
I mean, the advantage to working on like an awful lot of other projects sort of at the same time is you start collecting what we would call Gustav people, because the code name was Gustav, internally at least. Well, yeah, BG3 people as we went. So if you work with someone who works on something, I'm like,
oh, but I've got
I'm going to keep you in mind because I think I've got a thing coming up in a little while. How do you fancy being in Lycra? And then you can sort of find the people who you know would fit in the world as you go. Also extensive casting, because once we knew what the style needed to be, it was a case of finding people who fit in that mold. And so once you've got your world established, it's a case of just finding the pieces to go in it.
Yeah, and I think obviously the writing in the game should go down in history. And I think, that helped us so much because obviously, like I said, you get your biography, but then also if you just look at the lines of the character, if the biography doesn't cover it, you look at them and you're like, oh, this kid's just really lonely. Or, you know, whatever it is that's going on with that character. And then, you know,
It's safe to say that I think everyone that we spoke to from Larian's side really cared. And that sounds really glib to say, but I mean, every single aspect, everyone was really dedicated to. So every NPC had like a 4, 5, 7, sometimes even if like they've got 4 lines, but there's a full bio for this person because they've created them. And then it's crazy. Justification to that by having a fantastic performance rather than go over there's your trapdoor. You know, it's so, yeah, that's trying to bring that same level of care into what we did was sort of the goal.
And, you know, you do games where things feel a bit generic sometimes. You're like, you know, generic soldier number 4 does generic thing number 3, and you're kind of like, why?
But I think Larian have spoilt you there a little bit, haven't they?
Yeah, so, you know, when you get that material, you want to do something with it because it's inspiring. You know.
I mean, what it also does, though, is that on other things that we work on is then that's the kind of performances that we got for this is now at least my mental benchmark. It's like, cool, now let's apply this to everything else that we do. Although sometimes it does make me sad when you see characters who aren't fully mocapped now, because it's just so cool when you actually get that physicality tied in with the voice. But it takes an awful lot of work to do that, and you can't do that for every game. So,
can you?
At Pitstop, we can.
I feel very uncomfortable.
Oh, it's fine.
That's going to be on the edit.
That's the cut.
Yeah. By the way, Beth, I love your TikTok with all the little behind the scenes and funny videos. And I saw you. Was that your son that you got in the mocap stage?
No, I have no relation to that person whatsoever. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So my son, like, it was a little one-line character, and the bio was like, small boy, who won't be let into the city, and we had a quiet afternoon. So
our mocap techs had to work out how to scale down a mocap suit. So like find black clothes and then work out where to put the minimum number of markers on him.
But yeah, the little, like, we call it Power Ranger, which is, you know, like the avatar essentially of what the data gets put onto, was like so shrunken, but really wide as well. It was so cute.
Yeah,
we had fun. But thank you. I'm glad you're appreciating my TikToks. I saw that you followed me.
Just Beth Park, right? For anyone that wants to follow.
It's Beth Park Director.
Oh, it's fancy.
Oh. I
is her other one. But
yeah, it's not Beth Park Homemaker and
yeah, no, I just talk about like some of the casting, and you know, if I ever get to see any of the actors, I persuade them to come on the camera.
Bully them
to come on the camera.
Josh, so your first game, when was that? Was that Divinity Original Sin 1? That was your first ever?
Well, technically second, but the first one was so tiny that no one ever played it, so that's fine. But yeah, so my first game was DOS 1.
So compare you then to now, how have you developed over the last 10 or so years?
I look back on some of the things
I've done. Well, I've got longer hair and more children.
But yeah, throughout the course of this, as a director, I've grown massively. Because normally, prior to that, it was just a purely voice background, where you can rely more heavily on like technical notes, as it were, just to get an awful lot of stuff done, saying, well, okay, give us your best American accent, and then we're going to pitch it down from here, hit that word, stress that, and there, that's meaning. Cool, we can move on. But by doing this, it relies so much on physicality that you have to adopt new language. You have to speak from a more like theatrical background in order to get the performance with the nuance and the reality that you need. So learning from the lovely team of directors that we have here, Beth included, on different ways of approaching the same thing. So as a director, I feel like I've grown in strength massively over the last 10 years.
I think it must have always been there within you, to be fair. Because if I saw on paper, like, oh, this guy was an engineer, and now he's like the lead director, what? I would be like, surely he's not good, but actually you're brilliant.
Mum!
Yeah. No, but it was in there.
Well, I did my dissertation for my university degree. I did an audio degree. But whereas everyone else recorded an album, I recorded a radio play.
Because
Big fan of Radio 4 growing up, which is because I was
Cool.
yeah. So did an album in found a local theatre theatre creator and writer, and then she and I worked together to create radio players. That was my final hand in. So.
But do you think 2014 or whenever it was, 2014, Josh could do what he did on Baldur's Gate 3?
Oh, no, that guy was an idiot. I wouldn't pay attention to him at all. Actually, what was fun was actually I was having a chat with Emma Gregory, who was
Minthara. Yeah.
But we worked together first on DOS 1, and then brought her back for DOS 2, and now put her back for Baldur, because she's just an amazing talent. She had to audition for it. Wasn't like nepotism or favoritism. She's had to audition for all these roles, but she's just fantastic. We were just having this conversation the other night about.
Funnily enough, me and her worked together as actors on my first ever job out of drama school, and she played my mum.
Oh,
Well, my step.
Yeah, it's really funny. I'm going to do a TikTok about that.
But yeah, it was just seeing those people who've sort of seen how we've grown and changed over the years as well. So, because this was her first mocap job. So, yeah, and so she bit into it. Oh. She was passionate. She wanted to know everything about it.
So good.
And so, yeah, from going from 0 to 100 in terms of mocap for her, which was delightful to see.
So chances are Baldur's Gate 4, if that ever happens, she might get a look in. The track record's looking good for her at the moment.
And nothing. Lucky penny.
Beth, I guess the same question for you. How have you developed over the last 4 or 5 years on this project?
Yeah, I mean, I've got so arrogant doing
This. I'm so cocky now.
Josh has got to pull you in line, does he?
I wouldn't even know how.
I don't know. I feel like when I was an actor, I was fine. I was fine as an actor, but I always loved like the rehearsal process, like the scripts. But then when it actually got to actually shooting something or being in a play or whatever, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm over it now. I just like the making of it bit, and now that just makes so much sense. So yeah, that was already there. That was the bit I kind of had for free, as that kind of just like ravenous for stories. That's weird. But now, yeah, I guess I'm just confident in what I can do. I think I could already do it to a certain degree, but I guess I would just kind of question myself, or, you know, as I said, I didn't even really play games. So there's just like a level of knowledge, I guess, I've learned.
Yeah, I think.
I'd love to hear your guys' take on AI in voice acting, because that's a big topic at the moment in the industry. And what's your opinion, if you can?
It's not there yet, which is the first one. It's not there yet. I don't think it will ever replace a real person on the grounds. There's so much nuance that
can be added.
It's just never going to happen in terms of, like, you know, if you want like a really like gorgeous in-depth cinematic experience. But will people attempt it? I think
they will. I mean, ultimately, corporations want to make money, and that's just all it comes down to. If they can do something cheaper, they will. But I think Baldur's Gate 3 is an amazing example of, like, people were pouring out their heart and soul in there. They were.
Left it all on the field.
They really, truly did. And we were, like, capturing it and bottling it and delivering it. And, you know, a computer could mimic that, but I think the audience won't get the same response because they will know it's not real. The computer never felt anything. And the actors in Baldur's Gate 3, you know, the response to the cast, you know, the way people are invested in the people, the cast behind the voices as well, I think is a huge selling point to the game. Like, you know, people love the origin characters and a lot of their favourite NPCs. And obviously they're not going to be like, oh, I love AI voice bot
7,000. I bought the game.
Them.
I mean, there will be a certain subsection of the player market who will be, but that's a different thing. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously they're going to try and do it to spend less money. And I think for, you know, tiny indie studios who are just doing like little bits of voice here and there, obviously I would encourage them to get real actors because you're going to get a better result. But if they have zero budget, like maybe that is where it could get used, but for a big studio making a big game, the audience would expect better, I imagine.
For AAA or quadruple A, which is now the new benchmark standard.
Yeah.
It is now what you guys have done with this game. It's like quadruple A now. It's a new benchmark.
Yeah, Larian set the bar. We had to meet it. That's with everything that went into it.
How proud are you guys seeing Neil and some of the guys getting this award recognition and the game going up for Game of the Year and probably winning? I would put my money on it. How does that feel for you guys being involved with a game that has that much recognition across the industry?
It's sort of surreal, especially because I know from us, we did it for just so long. This has been like our day-to-day in some way, even no matter what. Like for most years, well, over the last 5 years, most days have been in some way involved in Baldur's Gate. Just something's going on, a conversation. And now I can't remember who it was, but someone from Larian sort of described it as after you've broken up with someone and then they've gone off and there was someone else who loves them. It's a weird sort of thing. It is delightful, and especially seeing that all our cast getting the success and recognition that they deserve. Because, they put in so much work in this.
Yeah.
And just seeing that appreciated by a vaster audience than I must admit. When it came out on PS5, the numbers there were insane. Because I was thinking, PC, pretty solid for an RPG. But, yeah.
I had no idea it was going to be this big. I honestly thought, it will come out. Some people will play it, but essentially there won't be much conversation around it. It will just be, another game that came out this year. And yes, obviously, we're just so proud to be involved in. And obviously something that's so commended for, something that we were so deeply involved in, the story and the performances. I mean, wow, that's pretty cool.
Also, weirdly, zeitgeisty at the moment as well, which is very strange. It's when you get mentioned on South Park, it's like, okay, we are definitely in that point now.
Yeah. Hitting mainstream.
Never, man. We
won't sell out.
So how many people actually work at Pitstop, guys?
Down here, we've got a team of freelance and full-time of 35. Up north, where our head offices are, where we've got our sound design, project management, animation, and composition departments. I think there's another 100 or so. We're not a big company.
Yeah, but those are definitely the kind of unseen heroes in terms of Baldur's Gate.
Audio post-production, sweet Jesus alone. Yeah.
Post-production, yes, because the quantity of material that they were having to, on the factory floor, process, but also in pre-production with, just logistically making this happen. I mean, we had so many studios full all day, every day for months and months and months and months on end. So just logistically making that happen, the production side, the production side of the casting, it was absolutely huge. So yeah, those are truly the unseen heroes that deserve all the accolades.
Or the large amount of
swearing and alcohol that it took to get there.
Just because you're balancing freelancer schedules between actors and directors, and then also edit teams as well, and to hit various deadlines and benchmarks as time has gone on. But yeah, so it's herding cats in the most aggressive form, but they managed it.
Talk to me about Karlach, Samantha Beart. What a performance that was!
So good, so
incredible.
Good. We love Sam. Yeah.
I mean, you're not supposed to have favourites, but sometimes you do. And the work that Sam did on this project has been delightful. I was saying, when they came in for their initial casting, they turned up in an in t-shirt and a pair of new rocks, and just walking into the studio. So I've got a sense, I feel we're onto a good one here. Yeah, that's the right kind of energy that we need. And then,
when they left, we just kind of looked at each other and we were like, that
felt right.
That felt right.
Strength but kindness, which is obviously Karlach is a really powerful strong role, which could easily move into brutish and a bit gruff, but then Sam brought to it the sensitivity and that labradory kind of energy and just vibrance and love for life. So it was a really nuanced role, and they did it fantastically. They got every single colour out of that part.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I'm curious for you guys, were there certain actors that you would have more time with over the last 4 years? Were there some that you would end up being with more than others, or was it?
Yes.
Sometimes we played favourites, and requested if someone was coming back, if you happen to like a role or something like that.
Oh, you mean like us personally as individuals?
Well, because I know Neil mentions Josh a lot, so I'm guessing you worked with him quite a fair bit.
As much as I could, as it were. We sort of understood Astarion straight off the bat. We had a big conversation like at the nascent stages very early on about who this was and how like his just like fundamental outward personality would be, which got really tricky at some points, but I'm not sure that was ever approved. But let's see, we weren't. This is kind of the approach, and since then we've just every time that diaries have aligned, we've had great fun. So we're just jumping back into the booth together on it.
Yeah, I think he's also just super grateful to you for casting him in the first place.
That was
and
one of the easiest castings known to man.
Yeah.
I have to say. If you spend 5 minutes talking to Neil, you go, yeah, okay, that checks out. Yeah.
What about you, Beth?
I mean, it was a long time, 4 years.
I know.
There was a
lot of times with a lot of them. I did spend a lot of time on Shadowheart, I will say.
Wow.
Time on Gale. Yeah, I mean, I did. I don't know if I could claim the majority, but it feels like the majority on Shadowheart and quite a lot on Gale. But in terms of like people we spend more time or less time with, we probably spent the least time out of the Origins with Devora on Lae'zel because she was just so quick. Like, she recorded her lines so much faster than anyone else.
And wore it as a badge of honour as well.
Yes, but to her detriment, because if you go slower, you get booked more and
you get paid more.
She was like, I'm the fastest one. She's so Lae'zel.
She does like to be told that she's the fastest and the best one.
Yes.
That is. She's actually made a plaque for one of our studios we need to put up one day. It's like a wee bronze plaque to go into her studio, as it.
Yeah.
So one
She
day
told me, yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was up yet or not.
No, I want to try and get like a small curtain. Neil made one for himself, which he insisted was slightly larger for a different studio. So they're not.
No.
So it's fine.
But no, I mean, Devora is a machine. She had her baby and then was back within like weeks to record. And I'm a mum as well, as we've mentioned. And like, I personally found the whole newborn time just completely destroyed me on every level. But she was back at work with makeup on, completely functioning. And I was like, oh my God.
Session with us, went home and then went into labour.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was.
She's a true Githyanki.
Yeah.
She was like, yeah, pop it out, carry on.
I'd like to point out we didn't make her. We had like backup plans for like body doubling or just get her to sit down and read, and then we could like take care of it in post. But she was like, no, let's go.
She
I'm back, it's
insisted.
fine.
She just turned up at the studio.
Yeah. We didn't even book it. She just kept turning up. It was.
Loved it that much. This is the thing. We can go through all the characters, and we could be here for 5 hours talking about everyone.
And this could be a very long conversation.
So.
I will get to a couple of fan questions here because there's some really good questions here. What was the process like for choosing the voice actors for their roles? Do the writers have any input in that process at all, or is it completely up to you guys as the casting directors?
Depends on the scope of the role. Normally, especially if there's something which is really niche, I like to go to the writer to find out what kind of voice they had in mind. Like there's a few, especially with writers that you know quite well, you can sort of like pitch them ideas, so you know roughly what they had in mind, so you know what you're looking for. But then it's putting it through the lens of the performance style of this game as well, if that makes sense. Because they might suggest something which is a bit outlandish, be like, cool, so what would be the BG3 equivalent of that? That's the kind of person I'm looking for. And then working out backwards from there. But then for bigger roles, obviously, we need to sign off from Larian themselves, so we'd get tapes and reads and either get in-person auditions and then go back and forth and then kick it around.
Yeah,
So-
but then for the smaller ones, yeah, it was pretty much...
Then it was,
we
yeah.
just went for it. There was a nice example of, for Lucretius, who is the circus ringmaster. So I mentioned Rachel Quirk earlier, the writer of that area. She'd written in the bio... so the character was originally female, and she'd written, I like to think of the character like a drag queen, fabulous drag queen. And I was like, well, why don't we actually get a real drag queen? So we approached one of the drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race UK, Vinegar Strokes, and got an audition. It was a great audition. And so, that I had a nice little part in kind of forming that character. just because I was inspired by her suggestion.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
Thank you guys so much. Every role is beautifully cast. Are you able to tell me who the performer was for Leah? Because the role isn't listed in the credits. I really wanted to celebrate her amazing performance. Do you guys know?
Yes, that's an actor called Jenny Delaney.
Ah, that was right.
Yes. She's brilliant. She plays quite a few other parts, including loads. But you know, he who was the guy with the raven who summons like a spirit. She is the spirit that he summons. I can't remember the character name. She plays a couple of kids in the city. But yeah, she also mostly played Leah, and she did awesome. She's also the sister-in-law of one of the Tab voices.
So, you know, everyone's connected. Yeah.
But I know you mentioned like you got a few actors to do multiple characters, but it seems for the most part that, you know, compared to other games, some actors will do like 20, 30 voices in some of these RPGs, but it never went that far for this game.
Did a bit. It's a very big game.
And it's just a case of being very careful about where you use people, because everything's located into different maps. So if you then start having the conversation of cool. So if you're being a Githyanki here, you could also be a halfling in the same map, because they're not in the same conversation, but then they could appear again in the goblin camp and then further when we actually get to the lower city. And it's a case of maximizing the material you have and the time with the time and the people that you've got. It comes back down to logistics.
Like I was saying earlier about when's that actor coming in, and also where is that character,
what have they done before, what can we use them for, what do we know they're good at, and then work backwards from there.
And making sure that we speak to our directors and say, look, they have got two characters in the same building, can you please make sure those two characters sound completely different? It was our only option.
Head voice, chest voice, please. Just.
But so that was kind of all about communication and making our directors being really diligent. Obviously, there's a few occasions where you'll recognise a voice, but
I didn't recognise any. That didn't happen once. Nah.
I mean, no, there's some actors who are just so good at all these different voices, and because they're so good, every time they come in, you give them another small part, and then that character would need pickups. So then you give them another small part, and then that character would need pickups, and another one, and it just snowballs. So you end up with.
I can't remember who held the course record in the end, but at some point it had like 32 roles or something. Was it?
Some people did have like 30 roles, but they were just so spread apart.
Whoever that was, kudos.
The only time I felt that it might have been a bit obvious was Dario Coates, because I very early on realised that Dario plays being
tortured very well. I think with that in mind,
every time it came up to a character, like, oh, they're chained to a bed, they're trapped to a windmill. Then it was like,
I know a guy.
who's being tortured incredibly well. So poor
true.
Dario, we tortured him over and over again. But each one was very distinct.
He does it so well.
He does it well.
And does he just cop it on the chin? Oh, we need another torture scene, mate. Come in.
He doesn't even touch the sides.
Yeah.
Oh,
he does hop the studio at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What was the most challenging part of the last 4 to 5 years, Beth and Josh? Ooh.
I think sometimes it's a case of there's like two sides to all voice production for game. There's the actual in the session doing it bit, which is playtime. But then it's the back office logistical stuff, which is not playtime. That's very much work. And it's trying to ensure that the fun bit can happen by doing all the grunt work in the background. And that's what our team have had to, diligently bury themselves in with lots of calls and schedule bashing and emails back and forth and trying to get pipelines to meet deadlines. And sometimes that is hard. It's hard. It's not worth it. I'm not saying it's not worth it, but it's work.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
That we held ourselves to a really high standard, like throughout, and I think, it paid off. It turned out real good. But it got to a certain point where we were getting so much material to record. When the deadline was set in stone. And we'd already set the bar of being like, look, this is how we're doing it. We're not going to throw away even the smallest character. It's not just like, oh, whatever, that person will do it. And I don't care if they don't fit the casting. We'd set the bar for ourselves. And then they got to a point where, it was Like, are we going to be able to keep our heads above water here if we keep doing it to this standard? And there had to be a certain point. It's kind of similar to what we were saying earlier about, like, you can try too hard when you're directing, and at a certain point, if you just trust that the actor can do it, then you can flow. And it was kind of the same with, like, the casting and everything. It was like, we have got to this point. We've got this many great actors, like, on our roster, essentially. If we just trust and go and keep moving forward instead of, like, micro-analysing every single little thing when it got to that very, very, very busy period, then it gets to the point where you have to make quicker decisions, basically. So it was, you know, that was the solution, being like, great, okay, that person seems right, we'll make that decision, as opposed to kind of agonising over everything because there just simply wasn't time. And that was, like, the transition to realising that, like, was a hard few months.
But also in, like, from the actual performance side as well, it's like, well, cool, you nailed it, let's move on. Not, okay, cool, we've got that. Now let's see what else we can do with this. It was like, no, that was a perfect take of that line, we are fine, let's move on to the next one. Yeah. As long as the actor's happy and you're happy with that, then all good.
This is a tough one. Favorite moment from making Baldur's Gate 3, or favorite moments? I'm not picky, apparently.
We've had obviously lots of, like, some of the big, like, emotional stuff has been torturous in the case of, like, especially when we had a period of doing. I had, like, a rush of Shadowheart sessions where every session was
Draining.
Full on, yeah.
Yeah, but Jen was dragged through every single emotional state known to man, and she was doing such good work, but at the same time, you sort of had to have a moment with yourself afterwards, just like 5 minutes just to decompress before carrying on with your day. But in all honesty, I think one of the best things we did was when we did the Pain Priest with Declan Perring. You know, the chap in the Goblin Camp, the torturer, who, yeah.
Abradak or something.
Yeah. Well, you didn't see the first version of that. You saw the second version because the first version we got was the only time in the entire process where they went,
yeah, you went a bit far. Can you pull that back?
Really? You actually went too far.
You went too far.
Wow,
like,
I'm shocked.
Now we know what we're doing. Let's rein that back a little bit.
I'm actually shocked.
I don't know. It is really hard to say. There wasn't a favourite moment. I'm just trying to think of, like, some highlights which I feel like people might enjoy.
Yeah.
I was there for Stop Licking the Damn Thing. I was directing Tim in the scene. And yes, obviously he went for this crazy you know, I described it so vividly. I inspired him so much that Stop Licking the Damn Thing you can thank me for. And also I was there for Neil's last session, and that was actually really emotional because I was like, okay, this is the last line, this is our final line, and it really was the last session. And he was really struggling to get through it, like he needed a moment because, you know, he gave it his all, like he gave it everything. So yeah, he did the last line and then, like, had a little cry, and we were all just a bit like so that was, like, really beautiful moment. I was really, really happy to be there for that. Oh, so many. Shadowheart and with her parents, like, that was heartbreaking and amazing and so good. So many amazing moments. And, you know, you feel like you've imagined it all. You've been there on this amazing journey with these people over the years. And then just, like, watching little bits of it, you know, seeing it back. It's just amazing. Just to, you know, wow, this is like a massive big deal. This is huge.
One for me, Saravok was great fun. I have to say, just in a bizarre way, because obviously the character established from BG, you know,
1 and 2.
1 and 2,
especially
2. But we had to come up with our equivalent. The original actor wasn't available, I think, so we had to find our own, and we found famed voice actor of trailers, Red Pepper, to come in and do this. Now, Red is a delightful, massive giant of a human being, but also he's a voice actor. So this was his first time doing mocap. But it was like, I remember just going through the scene and going, that man is mainly in a throne throughout most of this. Okay, cool. So that takes out most of it, yeah. So we got Red in, you know, all, you know, 6 foot something of him, mocap suit, and we just put him in this chair, and he dominated our studio in one fell swoop. It was spectacular. He got the posture, he got the pose, and then he just delivered. Just
the whole building was vibrating.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I was just sitting outside doing a little bit of gentle casting, and I was like holding onto my chair as
Yeah, you've got these speakers which are not small, and when his basso tones came through, that you could just to stop them. But
And no audio effects either, right?
No,
Yeah,
that's just
yeah. Damn.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you can find someone, especially when this isn't their forte, and then just bringing another side out of them or using them in a way that they don't know you have inside them. It's great fun, and that's playtime. That's brilliant.
Do you find that most voice actors transition all right to mocap?
Not most, I wouldn't say. If someone is a voice actor, it actually can be a bit detrimental because they're used to actually probably just like belly up kind of engaging in like focusing their energy into a microphone, but we don't have the microphone there. We have the microphone on their head. So it's actually quite a new skill. I mean, I wouldn't say that the cast is dominated by purely just voice actors, really.
Nowadays, it's very rare to find people
who are just
voice actors. Yeah.
Yeah, things have changed so much in the last like 10 years or so. So now people are actors, as they should be recognised as. They're actors, and
Yeah, but definitely it's a strange transition for anyone because they are surrounded by at least 20 cameras, depending which studio they're in. So they feel like they're very much under a microscope. As we were saying before, it can make people very tense.
Saying it's kind of like doing black box theatre because you've got nothing around you. You are in an empty void, and then you have to invent the world with you. But yeah.
That's when we paint our word pictures.
When you watched it back, guys, I'm guessing you haven't played the game, or you have, or what?
I am quite bad at RPGs. Explorer mode. I am currently on the initial ship.
And a few times.
I did complete character creation, so I did that. But
I've watched it. I've watched loads on YouTube, but I haven't played it.
Yeah.
As we're saying, I don't really have time.
Just for context, before we started working on DOS 2, me and a colleague went to Larian to play like early access, pre-voiced, as it were, and they set us up in the initial island, and I had to say, "Oh, what do you think of it?" I said, "Well, I died like 15 times," and they laughed. And then they gave me God mode.
Just so I could actually go around.
My skill level was not high enough to actually explore the game. So, yeah.
You should tell them to hook you up now with God mode, eh?
I just want to know what it sounds like.
Don't let me get in the way of that. But there are many, many playthroughs, which is quite handy.
I guess, what's it like for you to watch back some of the scenes that you directed? Do you see the little nuances that you saw when you were directing the actors?
Sometimes, yeah. And they're actually one of the coolest stuff is when we get like rushes through, or the equivalent of rushes through. So like pre-rendered footage and not final graphics, but you can just sort of get like, it looks janky because it's not finely polished. But when you can still, that's been translated into in-game and it still works, then you get it tickles you and it's delightful. Like that thing I was talking about with Sam's very emotional scenes, and we were all in tears in the studio. I watched the pre-render of that. And it
got me again the second.
Still got you, yeah.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a filmmaker as well, so it's quite similar in the sense that like when you're finishing a film and you're just waiting for the color grade, or you're waiting for the sound mix or whatever. Every time you see it, you're like, oh God, and then eventually when it all comes together, you're like, oh, that looks like a movie. Okay, so it's similar. Watching the game back, we're only responsible for a narrow part of it. So then seeing everyone else's work layered in with ours, it's just amazing reward, and be like, oh my God, look at the lighting, look at the, the environment.
Sound design, music, it's all just,
It's delightful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you're a filmmaker. What are you working on at the moment, Beth?
I've got a film which is nearly finished. It's called Wild Animal. It's a short film. It's, executive produced by Oscar-winning producers and BAFTA-winning producers, and it stars Charlotte Riley. I'll hook you up with a link.
Yeah,
look out.
Please. That sounds fantastic. What's it about?
It's about a woman who finds an abandoned baby, and then the mother is stalking her.
Ooh. So what genre are we talking?
It's kind of
Romantic
a thriller.
Thriller.
It's kind of horror drama vibe. Unsettling is the genre.
I guess you don't get to do many horror sort of games, do you?
Not as many as we'd like.
Yeah.
We want to. We're more than open for that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I love horror, but I like my horror. I don't love just like, oh, let's chop everyone's heads off type horror. I mean, that's okay, but I prefer more of like your psychological, disturbing.
Like Sinister. Have you seen that film?
No, I haven't.
Oh, that's a good one. You should check that out. Yeah.
But my first film is available on YouTube. It's called Fishwife. It's on YouTube. Yeah, it's pretty good.
And what are you up to in your spare time, Josh?
Honestly, mainly woodworking. It's hobby, as it were. I do this an awful lot of the time, but yeah, I've got 2 kids, and yeah, just finished a renovation, and nothing really. I've lots of not working on video games is the main thing. Yeah.
Relaxing.
Yeah, well, as much as you can.
I haven't got films I'm making. But yeah.
He made these tables. He built this studio with his bare hands.
Not this one.
Oh,
The one's upstairs, yeah.
And someone else built them. The ones upstairs I made. So yeah.
I guess a couple more, guys. Thank you again for being so generous with your time. What's one thing that you admire about each other?
Your hair.
Is it?
Oh, well, Josh is a really good boss. I would say, like, it's like a really good leader in the sense of it's not really it doesn't appear to be about your ego at any point.
Oh.
It's kind of about, it's about the process and the people. And I think maybe now I'm in your model, I would do, if I was a leader in the same way, I would do it how you're doing it. But when I first joined, I would have probably been like, right, everyone fall in line, we're going to do it like this. But no, I've learned a lot from Josh in that regard of like accepting people how they are, what energy they're bringing, instead of kind of crunching them into, the mold that you think has to be. And I think that makes you a really good leader.
The thing I appreciate most about Beth is tenacity.
Yeah.
You stick to your guns if you're passionate about something in an amazing way.
Aww.
It's a thing, like, it's very easy, especially with what we do. There's an awful lot of, like Sophie mentioned, the grind and paperwork of it. And sometimes it's very easy to like let things not slide, but like, oh, okay, it's fine, it's a bit dirty, we'll just crack this through. But if I know that if you're talking about something and you are passionate and care about it, it always gives me pause.
Aww.
It's like, okay, maybe I should actually spend more time paying attention to this, because if you care about it this much, it must be important.
Aww.
And therefore making sure, and then sort of stopping, listening, and then trying to enact as best as possible within the confines of what we do.
See what I said? Good leader. Good team.
In darkness.
And your darkness.
We'll leave it a bit.
You guys are kicking ass. I love it. Do you have any? Would you give any? Could you give us any tips as we wrap this one up? Tips for actors coming in and auditioning, and what? Any sort of tips you can give for?
Yes, I got. So I guess this is just a blanket advice on acting. So if you're auditioning, if you get in the room, just in general, it's 2 really different things. It's craft, which takes effort, but it's also relaxation, which takes letting go. And then if you combine those with your imagination, so you have to do the craft beforehand. You've worked on yourself, worked on your craft, and worked on your skill, and then you have to completely forget about that. So when you're in the room, if you have an actor who is just demonstrating their craft, like demonstrating how well they can talk, it is not good. It's dead. But if you have someone who can let go of that craft, they've done all the work, they prepared, but then they can just be like, okay, goodbye. Don't need that right now. Now I'm in the room. And they can let go and they can relax. And then the power triangle to imagination. So that's like where we're trying to get to. Like if you can allow yourself to relax enough in order to imagine what is going on, and you have the skill, you're going to be absolutely fine. That's
Great answer.
I would say, when it comes to especially submitting tapes and reels for auditions and companies like ours, what I'm looking for, a lot of people can do appropriate accents and voices, but the thing which pushes it that little bit further is a performance, though. So it sounds like you're engaged in the scene. You're in that moment when doing your best American accent, as it were. And approach every single tape, not as a demonstration, like you said, of your technical acumen of how well I can do this voice, how well I can sound like this warrior, but more how that warrior feels in that moment, how they are experiencing the line, even if they're short, because that makes it so much more. Well, obviously that's the acting bit, but that's the that makes it more believable, even on a tape. Even if they don't completely fit the brief entirely, but they've got that engagement with the role and they're in the situation where the line is being delivered, that is sometimes more interesting than being able to fit a brief. Sometimes, and every time you sort of shortlist, I keep like wild card ones where this isn't what you asked for, however, definitely worth a listen.
So,
thank you for that, guys.
Yeah, it's. I was an actor. I know it's so hard out there, and it's so easy to become dispirited. You've got to be in it for the right reasons and just love it when you get it, but not just try to avoid going down that spiral of self-loathing when you don't get it. Because I hate casting because there's so many amazing actors, and I have to say no to 99.9% of them. And there's so many good ones. But me having to say no doesn't mean they should give up and not be good.
We do keep very, very strong records now of people who have hit our highest caliber of these are the ones we would recommend. And even if they don't get it, it's like, we've got your name.
Yeah.
Don't worry, because we will find a use for you somewhere, because I'm sure you are obviously very talented. We want to work with you.
It's hard. It's hard.
Thank you for that, guys. I don't usually ask that, but I've got two phenomenal directors on. I have to ask that question. Otherwise, what am I doing?
You want to send us your tape?
No, I'm not an actor, but if you want to make me a squirrel in Baldur's Gate 4, I'm all for it.
I am like a goblin and one pigeon. So,
nice. Nice.
In case of diving in, the water's warm. You have to.
I'm a squirrel.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
A squirrel that you can kick.
You're my favorite squirrel in the game.
Oh, thank you for that.
Thank you for that qualifier of in the game.
That's huge. In the game. Well,
it's all, no. Thank you so much, guys, for today. I really appreciate it. Last question. How has this experience changed you as a person?
I think just in terms of story time, we did DOS 2 with a team of 5. We did Baldur's Gate with a team of 35. Personally, for me, learning how to work with a team of 35 has made me mature as a person and grow in, I think, the right direction. And so that, I think, has been the main
fundamental change.
That's a big difference. Yeah. That's
telling me. It's enough coffee now. Everyone's got a bloody queue.
I guess it's made me value the things about me which have made me good at this particular job. That level of relaxation and fun which can bring the best out of people. That holding on to inspiration when you read a script, instead of being like, let's just record these words as written. Valuing and trusting the strengths. I think that's such I feel like I'm in a job interview with that answer. Sorry, but
5 years, Beth, by the way.
Yeah, no, I'm confident in what I can do, and whereas before, I guess I felt I had to prove so much that sometimes it would get in the way because you're trying so hard to prove yourself that it's actually you're doing too much. Whereas now I'm like, I know what I can do. Yeah, it's fine. I'll show you. If you come to me.
You guys must be looking forward to the future of what Pitstop can do. You guys are phenomenal.
We've done some things. We're doing more things. NDAs are wonderful. Yes.
That's all you can say.
But ridiculous litigious industry. Yes, exciting things are planned and happening. And
well, promise me you two will come back on the show sometime. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Next time you're following a game of great interest
that we've worked on. More.
Oh, thanks for having us. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah. Pleasure, guys. Are you guys on social media at all?
Me, no. Yeah.
Me?
Yes.
He has a woodworking account with 100 followers.
Yeah, it's the worst. People keep tagging my woodworking like on Instagram. I wanted something a place I could keep photos, but that means that so many people tag me. It's like, who is this guy with the bench? I don't. Yeah, but no.
Yeah.
But anyway, Beth.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Beth_Park_Beth. And yeah, I post about my films on there and just a little bit about me and a little bit about video games. And then TikTok, Beth Park Director. And I talk about Baldur's Gate a lot on there. And I talk to the actors whenever I can get hold of them. And it's all very silly, but I am enjoying it.
I'm enjoying the development of your lore.
The law. Oh my God, the actors are calling me now. They won't leave me alone.
Thank you very much, guys. It's really been a pleasure to chat with you today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank
It's been
you
an
for
absolute
having
pleasure.
us.